Welcome to our continuing session on The Interior Castle by Saint Teresa of Avila. We're using this version. I'm not sure it shows up very well, but it's the translation by Mirabai Starr. And we're gradually going through the various dwellings that Teresa describes. And we've reached now the sixth dwelling, which is getting quite far on in the spiritual progress that Teresa describes. So I'm going to outline some parts of this. It's quite a long section on the sixth dwelling. And in this section, Teresa talks a lot about spiritual experiences of the kind that can occur in the sixth dwelling. And these are the kind of experiences that are at the boundary or beyond the boundary, really, of normal natural experiences. In other words, they're supernatural or transcendental. But she also writes about the dangers of such experiences, that we might, in fact, be deluding ourselves by imagining experiences and believing them to be God-given. Or also, other people might conclude that we ourselves are becoming mentally unwell if we talk to talk to people about some of the experiences that we may be having. And Teresa herself came in for a lot of criticism because of her experiences, not least from her own spiritual advisors and other religious people. And today, it's easy to find in the medical literature people who've written about Teresa who are claiming that they can find clear evidence that she was in fact suffering from epilepsy. And that was the reason why she was having these unusual experiences. And as a psychiatrist, I'm interested in this boundary between mental disorders and spiritual experiences. There are criteria for diagnosing mental health problems. And in her chapters on the sixth dwelling, Teresa gives criteria for discerning true spiritual experiences. But the problem is that the two overlap. There's often grey areas in between, and perhaps this shouldn't surprise us. It's entirely possible to have both together. Simply suffering from a mental health problem or from epilepsy doesn't spiritually invalidate a person. I want to focus on one particular area that Teresa speaks about, and that's the imagination. Although Teresa doesn't say this explicitly, that there is traditionally a division of two forms of the imagination. One might be termed the fanciful imagination. And we all know that images or conversations can be conjured up voluntarily. And these might be religious imaginings, such as imagining Jesus sitting in a chair opposite us and perhaps speaking to us, or perhaps imagining oneself as a character in a biblical scene. And we all know this can be a valid spiritual exercise when done in full awareness that we're using our imagination. But the other form of imagination is something much deeper. It's been called the mundus imaginalis, or the imaginal world. And this is a world which is intermediate between the world of the senses, or the apparently material world, on the one hand, and the world of pure spirit on the other hand, where no thoughts and concepts exist. And the imaginal world is regarded as being just as real as the sensory world or the spiritual world. And it's the place of true spiritual experiences. It can be thought of as a liminal place between the two. It's like the shore between the sea and the earth. In ancient Norse mythology, it's the shoreland that was the birthplace of human beings. In their creation myth, the original man and woman were created from two pieces of driftwood that were thrown upon the shore, called Usk and Embla. They were given form and life and spirit. We are liminal beings. We have access both to the material world and to the spiritual world. Teresa, though, warns us of the dangers of unbridled imagination. The imagination used consciously is fine, but we can be deceived by imaginary voices and visions that are in fact fanciful, even though they appear to be truly spiritual. This might happen if we ask for guidance on a particular subject, and we might get an answer that's generated unconsciously by our own ego-based wishes, rather than having any divine source. And I'm going to read what Teresa says about the discernment of spiritual experiences. She's talking here about spiritual voices. Whether these spiritual voices come from within, from above, or from outside of the soul has nothing to do with the question of whether their source is divine. Here are the clearest indications, in my opinion, that a spiritual voice comes from God. The first and truest sign is the power and authority they bear. That which is revealed in words is manifested in works. Let me try to explain this better. Say the soul finds herself immersed in tribulations and inner disquiet. Her mind feels dark and her spirit arid. It seems to the soul that if all the wise men in the world were to line up and give her reasons why everything is all right, They could not alleviate her pain one iota, no matter how hard they tried. Alone, in prayer, she hears a single phrase: "Be not troubled." And all at once she is calm. A great light shines upon her and lifts away her distress. Just like that. Or maybe the soul is upset because after confiding in her spiritual guide or someone else about an inner experience, they tell her that she is being terrorized by an evil energy. Then she hears a voice inside of her. It is I. Fear not. And her fear falls away completely. She is so deeply comforted that she believes no one could ever make her feel otherwise. The second sign that a spiritual voice comes from God is the great quietude left in the soul. She lingers in peaceful recollection and devotion. And yet, at the same time, she is ready to burst into song praising God. They say that in this dwelling, it is not God who speaks directly to the soul, but an angel. The third sign is that the words do not fade from the memory for a very long time. Some stay forever. We may forget the things that men say, even if the people speaking them are important and educated, or what they are saying has some significant bearing on our future. But these words do not burn themselves into our memory, and we do not believe in them as fully as we do in divine spiritual voices. These inner messages may seem to be impossible, and our minds may balk, doubting that they could ever happen. But the certainty inside the soul is unconditional. Elsewhere, Teresa warns us that particularly early in our spiritual journey, and we're all beginners, really. I say that early on the journey, it is always better to let spiritual voices go. If the experience does come from God, detaching from it will help us evolve. She also tells us that unless the messages are in harmony with revealed truth, dismiss them as swiftly as you would words spoken by the spirit of evil itself. If they arise from your own weak imagination, if they're fanciful, it's best to treat them as temptations threatening your faith and to resist them. Once they hold no power over you, they will just go away by themselves. Discernment. We all know how difficult that is. To discern our own what is coming from our own ego wishes, and what is coming truly from the divine sources. As we're on the beach between the material sensory world and the spiritual world, we have access to both. We have input from both, coming in from our ego-based world, the world of the senses, and coming in from the spiritual world. We need to discern where the voices or the influences are truly coming from, putting aside the ego-based and resting in the spiritual, in the angelic, as Teresa tells us, the angelic. We can be helped perhaps by sharing with others, but they must be others of a like mind. Not others who are critical and rejecting. So we can rest now ourselves in that liminal area on that beach, which is where we belong. We can be ready to receive whatever input may come and discern where it may be coming from. Not asking for anything, not seeking anything, not expecting anything, just resting. Resting in peace, resting in quiet, resting in calmness, no fear, no disturbance. So we're coming to the end of our time of meditation. Thanking Teresa for reminding us how careful we must be to discern where our impulses and thoughts and voices and ideas are coming from. Are they truly coming from God or from angels? Are they truly directing us spiritually? Or are they our own ego wishes? How careful we need to be. Thank you.